Okay, Shalom Aleichem everyone. Today is Lag BaOmer. I want to share with you a Gemara and a practice that I don't think is so widely observed, but I guess I got into it a while ago when I was preparing the Sefer on Chinuch Habanim, and I want to share with you. The Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos Lamed Gimel Amud Beis. This is the famous Lag BaOmer Gemara. Lamed Gimel Amud Beis in Shabbos. Lag BaOmer. The Gemara tells us the story of how the Rashbi, because he criticized the Roman government, he had to run away. He hid out in a cave, and he was in the cave for 12 years. And when he came out, it seems like he did not have the ability to view people involved in worldly pursuits and understand the value of being involved in any kind of worldly pursuit, advancing society, advancing the outside world. Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi had spent 12 years immersed in the cave in Avodas HaKodesh, and wherever he cast his eyes, it burnt up. He went back into the cave for another year, and when he came out, it was Erev Shabbos. Bahadi Panya Demali Shabbata Chazu Hahu Saba. He saw an old man. They have a nokat shrei Medani Asa. He saw him holding 2 bundles of myrtles. V'roed bein hashmashos. He was running right before Shabbos. So the Rashi said, "What are you doing? Where are you going?" He said, "It's l'kavet Shabbos. These hadasim are l'kavet Shabbos." So the Rashi said, "Well, all you need is one." He said, "No, one keneged zachar and one keneged shamar." The Rashbi turns to his son. He said, "Chazi kama chavivin mitzvahs al Yisrael." Look how beloved the mitzvahs are for Klal Yisrael. So it was Erev Shabbos, and this old man was holding 2 bundles of myrtles, and he took it for a Kavod Shabbos. Says the Marsha, why did he need 2? But Zachar v'Shamar b'dibur echad nemra. Still, says the Marsha, they're 2 separate entities, and therefore he took 2. And for this reason, the Marsha says, we light 2 candles, one keneged Zachar and one keneged Shamar. Amazingly, the makar to light 2 candles Friday night comes from this Gemara. One keneged Zachar, one keneged Shamar. To light more than 2 candles, you'll be very hard-pressed to find a source to do that, although it's pretty widespread. I believe almost all women light a candle per child. Nevertheless, the main custom is 2 candles based on this Gemara. But then the Marsha adds a whopper. The Marsha adds that just like we know, the Gemara tells us in Shabbos that by lighting Neiros on Shabbos, it's a Segulah for Banim Chachamim. So too, the Hadasim that you take Friday night, Keneged Zachar v'Shamar, is a Segulah for Banim Talmidei Chachamim. This is the Chiddush of the Marsha. The Marsha says that if the same way we light 2 candles, Keneged Zachar v'Shamar, and it's a Segulah for Banim Talmidei Chachamim, so too if you take Hadasim. Why? Because Hadasim are also a reference to Tzadikim. Like the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, Tzadi Gimel Amud Aleph, Ein Hadasim Ela Tzadikim. Shenemar, Vayhi Oimehin Es Hadasa. And therefore, the Kaf HaChaim of Rav Chaim Falaji in Siman Yud Aleph Ois Mem Aleph, he brings that you should make a bracha on Hadasim at the Suda Shabbos, and it's a Segulah for Banim Tzadikim. To the point where the great-great-grandfather of the Chida in the Chesed Avram brings that someone who doesn't have 3 Hadasim Friday night, when they pass away, when Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov come to escort you, the neshama doesn't even know where to go. Okay, so Kabbalistically, there's definitely a source for the practice of taking Hadasim Friday night. Lamaisa, the Arizal brings in the Shara Kavanos, in his Drushim for Leil Shabbos, and in Pri Eitz Chaim, the Arizal was very makbid to take 2 Hadasim. Even though the Chesed Avram, who came later, speaks about 3, the Ari took 2, and the Magen Avram brings it lahalacha to take Hadasim. Many make a bracha bari atzei b'samim. So when I learned this, I was working on the Sefer of Chinuch Habanim. I was like, okay, if I'm putting this in the book, I got to do it. But how in the world am I going to get Hadasim? You know, the week after Sukkot, it's not hard to get Hadasim, but But after that, how in the world am I get Hadasim? So I went to some Moichrei Daled Minim, my friend Rabbi Charlap and others, and I got like a big shipment of Hadasim, but it only lasts a certain amount of time. Even if you have many to go, they don't last forever. And I thank my dear friend Rabbi Aryeh Jacobson, who he's under no obligation, but he's been bringing me Hadasim Erev Shabbos. I think in Brooklyn they have services where you could have them come to your house. Definitely in Borough Park. I remember when I spoke for the Svardim in Flatbush, they have a service, and in many shuls they get a big shipment and people just take it home Friday night. But if you could get your hands on some Hadasim, if you look in many of the Zemiros, in the Zemiros, you'll see Friday night by Kiddush, you'll see Boirei Atzei B'Samim, and you read there, it says, you make a bracha on Hadasim. I mean, when I first saw that, I was like, I thought Havdalah is after Shabbos. When I first started doing this Friday night, my kids were like, no. My minhag is we only smell B'Samim after Shabbos is over, And, they said, look, Daddy, you're the rabbi in the shul. You're the last one to come home. Everybody tells you, their geschäft Friday night. Until you get out of the shul and you come home and we get started. And now you're adding to this, you're adding more ceremonies until we start eating. But Baruch Hashem, we streamlined it. But I'm telling you about this today because when was the last time Lag BaOmer came out on Friday? The whole source of it is the Rashbi. When the Rashbi came out of the cave. By the way, I want to add, if I'm not mistaken, the Aruch HaShulchan says that the Rashbi came out of the cave on Lag BaOmer. So he came out of the cave on Lag BaOmer, and he instituted this practice on Lag BaOmer. So if you have a way to get some myrtles, if not that, at least you could get your wife some flowers. Some say the practice of buying flowers for Shabbos comes from this Gemara, which took place on Lag BaOmer. Anyway, that's just a relevant practice to Lag BaOmer. Okay. Now.